If the United States Air Force did recover alien bodies, they didn't tell me about it either, and I want to know.
We're all familiar with stories of UFO sightings and alien abduction claims. But did you know that in major cities around the world, there are vibrant communities of advocates pushing an agenda known as exopolitics and disclosure, calling on governments to bring to light the information that they have about alien visitations. They are joined, as we've seen, by often high-ranking officials, military personnel, and even the occasional astronaut.
Obviously, the three of us were not going to blurt out, "Hey, Houston, we got something moving alongside of us, and we don't know what it is. You know, can you tell us what it is?" We weren't about to do that, because we know that those transmissions would be heard by all sorts of people, and who knows what somebody would have demanded that we turn back because of aliens or whatever the reason is.
One of the leaders of the Toronto community is Viggiani. Viggiani publishes Zland Communications News Network, which produces media advisories, documentation, and multimedia content based on the political implications of, as they put it, the disclosure of information and events surrounding the extraterrestrial presence now engaging the human race. He also co-hosts The Conspiracy Show with Richard Syrett, and he sat down with Think Again TV to discuss disclosure.
Think Again TV is produced by Centre for Inquiry, Canada's premier venue for secular humanists, atheists, skeptics, and free thinkers.
Due to comments in response to the original version of this video, we feel it's necessary to clarify the CFI position. As per CFI's mandate to promote skeptical inquiry, we will be conducting a series of videos to explore all perspectives on the UFO question. The UFO issue is important. Our goal is to take such issues seriously and to understand them thoroughly. We encourage critical viewers to explore our Extraordinary Claims Campaign website at extraordinary-claims.com for an analysis of the evidence of a variety of extraordinary claims, including those related to UFOs. But for the record, CFI is not endorsing the claims or the beliefs of any of the characters who appear in this series of videos. We simply find their points of view fascinating and worthy of our attention. Exopolitics, I guess from that term, it's a combination extraterrestrial and politics?
Exactly.
How do those come together?
That's right, exactly. No, you've hit the nail right in the head. Basically, exopolitics is a combination of the extraterrestrial issue, what it might be, and the political implications of what the implications of contact might be down the road, and how the politics of extraterrestrials and the politics globally interact, and the major players that are involved in trying to disseminate, organize, and make sense of the extraterrestrial issue.
And I guess the idea, it being so politicized, is that there is a conspiracy at some level, certainly within the political sphere of government officials, who some of them know what's going on and they're covering it up, and in fact they're even covering it up from other government departments that don't know. How does all that work? I mean, the government's such a big bureaucracy. How do they keep it from each other?
When you use the word government, it's a really difficult term. What we'd like to do is say the word conspiracy is kind of a difficult thing. What we look at is why are government officials behind the scenes, intelligence agencies, in the government as a corporate entity, and not necessarily elected officials. Elected officials virtually know nothing or anything about this. We're talking about the people behind the scenes who have a very compartmentalized understanding of what the UFO issue is. We're talking about the military and intelligence agencies. So when you take a look at how that information is repressed or suppressed, that's the idea behind trying to find out the code of silence and the actual cover-up entities are operating together to keep this information off the radar of the media and among elected officials.
Speaking of elected officials, I mean, you claim that in recent times anyway, President Bill Clinton was, I guess, the most vocally interested in trying to get to the heart of it, but even he was denied access to the information. So who is calling the shots? I mean, how do you deny the president what he wants?
That's a great question. A very good example of that issue is when Billy Carter came to power as a Democrat. He had his own sighting with a group of people of a UFO, and he made his own report of the UFO.
Gathered in a schoolyard with about 20 other men, and we saw a bright light appear in the distant western skies, and it got closer and closer, and when it was just above the treetops, it changed color. And then it stayed there for a while, and then it disappeared into the distance. And none of us could ever imagine what it was, and I still don't know what it was.
And when he came to power, as he progressed into power, he said that once he got to power, he was going to bring this forward. He went to George Bush Sr., who at the time was the director of the CIA.
Right.
And he went to George Bush Sr., and Jimmy Carter said, Mr. Bush, I would like to have the UFO file. I want the information about UFOs. And believe it or not, George Bush Sr. said to the President of the United States, Mr. President, you do not have clearance to see this information.
But couldn't he have fired Bush? I mean, doesn't he appoint the CIA?
He may have, but he didn't.
Maybe he knew it wasn't something you'd want to do.
That's right. It wasn't politically wise at the time, but in fact he was denied access to the UFO file.
Do you maintain it could have even been dangerous if he had pushed? I think in your presentation you were suggesting maybe JFK pushed, for example, too far, and that other presidents have been warned, you know, you're going to end up like JFK if you push.
That's right, and I think that the message behind that is the president really doesn't have full knowledge of this, or is denied access to it, which proves, in my mind, or gives great evidence or credence to the fact that there are some very, very powerful groups behind, above, below, wherever it is, of the president who are in charge of this information.
You describe it as a superstructure.
Yeah, it is a super. It's the hidden government. It's the government behind the government.
Yeah.
Whatever government means at this stage in our history, that just will not let this information be known for whatever reasons. Maybe it's a good reason, maybe it's not. And maybe there's something about this issue that we don't need to know,
right,
that will in fact be very deleterious to our civilization. But the fact of the matter is that the truth is out there. That we do in fact know that there is a truth to be gotten about this.
Let's talk about what you see as the truth, because having been to a lot of presentations recently, you know, we've interacted at some of them in the last couple of weeks. I understand that there's a lot of skepticism about the official story. It's seen as a cover-up or a great conspiracy. What is it? And I guess it's hard to summarize it. But what is it that UFO proponents believe? Do you believe that there are frequent abductions, that it was a one-off thing with Roswell, that we're in communication? I mean, how extensive is what's going on out there?
Well, to try to distill it in the most basic terms, first of all, Justin, there is something going on in the skies. There's something definitely anomalous going on that we don't know about. There are craft up there that come in and out of our skies with impunity. They're coming and going. That's the first part. B, they are not our technology. They are not of this planet. They are of off-world origin. Those are the two things that we know. Okay. Why they're coming here and what connection they may have to government is totally up to speculation. The first two aspects of it, they're here, we know that they're here. And
so it wasn't a one-off thing.
No,
they're sort of constantly interacting in some way with us.
There's constant evaluation, constant observation, and a lot of evidence points to the fact that they've been here for a long, long time, perhaps thousands of years. We have evidence that Sumerian cultures have had contact.
The ancient alien theory, which is getting a lot of play on television these days.
Each of these ancient illustrations or statues depict figures dressed in strange attire for the times and sporting unusual headgear. But could they really be representations of alien astronauts, visitors from other worlds, who touched down upon the Earth thousands of years ago?
I don't think you can put it in the back seat. I really think that there's information there that we have to look at. It's all part of the evolution of this idea, and the evolution of this idea began back in 1947 in sort of a modern way, but it's gone on a lot further back than then, and it's going to continue to evolve, and the questions just seem to be blooming all over the place.
You mentioned the technology. Like, one of the things that I guess most proponents of this believe is that it's not just that they're visiting us, it's also that they may have special technologies to share with us. I want to ask you more about that, because I think that really connects to the exopolitics side of things, as you've described it.
Yes.
This superstructure that you describe, you see as sort of controlling access to this technology. Why would they do that?
Well, essentially, this technology, briefly, is very far advanced. Okay, this technology that these crafts, these civilizations use, that's could displace time. It could displace all forms of energy that we know. It could be anti-gravitic. It could be electromagnetic.
Right.
They have the capacity to move in time and space. Now, that proffers the question: are they from distant planets? Are they from interdimensional galaxies or realities? So they have propulsion systems that are far in advance of us, which begs the point of fossil fuels. If the government or whoever the behind-the-scenes people are that control fossil fuels let this information out, that this type of energy is accessible, and this energy is free, by the way, then that will destroy the oil industry overnight. And the oil magnates will not allow that to happen. So there's a lot of control based around the war economy, based on oil, based on fossil fuels, that really don't want this information to come out. And I think it's a very strong factor as to why disclosure is not moving ahead more quickly than it really is.
So last question for you, Victor. I'm always curious, what got you interested in this? What are you trying to accomplish, I guess, by your work in this area?
Justin, you know what? I just want to know the truth. I guess there's a gene in my body that just does not like being lied to. And I don't like our elected representatives, the people that we elect, not knowing about this, and the people that control our elected representatives to suppress the truth. And I think that we need to know the truth behind it, whatever it might be. I'm a proponent of saying that once we find out what this issue is all about, I'm convinced it's going to be totally different than what I think it is.
Right.
It could be something very, very different. But all I really want to know is the truth, and I just don't want to be lied to anymore. And I think our future generations, we owe it to them to find out what the heck is going on with this, and who these beings are, and where they're from, and why they're here.
It's great having you on the show, Victor. The claims of the UFO disclosure community are varied, and their conspiracy theory detailed, pulling in strands from many fields. Now that we have the lay of the land, in future videos in this series, Think Again TV will look critically at the various components of the disclosure story, and talk with some of the regular members of their many events.
I think it's time to open the books on questions that have remained in the dark, on the question of government investigations of UFOs. It's time to find out what the truth really is that's out there. We ought to do it really because it's right. We ought to do it because the American people, quite frankly, can handle the truth. And we ought to do it because it's the law.
Think Again TV is produced by Centre for Inquiry, Canada's premier venue for secular humanists, atheists, skeptics, and free thinkers.
CFI Canada coordinates branches and campus groups across the country, runs a public education series, provides secular community services, incorporates cutting-edge multimedia such as blogs, podcasts, and YouTube, and is a regular voice in the press presenting a secular humanist, atheist, and skeptical perspective.